So Preseason 2 of the Illuvium Testnet airdrop brought us missions and tasks and quests, whatever you want to call them. And while I think this is great for the testnet, I think this could become a problem when we hit open beta. So in this video, I want to go through some of the pros and cons of having missions and quests in open beta, as well as some possible solutions where it's a good middle ground where I think it could work. So first, let's take a look at what these quests and missions look like right now. So right now we're getting daily missions. For example, right now for Arena, it could be win an Ascendant game in ranked mode, reach wave 13 in survival. For Overworld, catch a tier 1 alluvial, forge epic shards, gather uncommon flint caps. For Zero, convert carbon, scan for alluvials, convert Hyperion. Then we have some weekly missions, play 12 arena survival training games, forge a Magus hexasuit, and for Zero, scan for alluvials. Now on top of these daily and weekly missions, we have milestones. Again, for Arena, Overworld, and Zero, I believe there's still none available here, but I'd expect these to come for open beta. So for Arena, it's mostly matches played and matches won, and ranking on the leaderboards, and also something here for the survival mode. For Overworld, it's a lot of catching different tiers of alluvials, forging all the suits, forging all of the weapons, and getting alluvial experience through matches. Here's where I see one of the big issues. I'm going to start off with the cons and then I'm going to get into the pros, because there's definitely some pros for having missions and quests, but I really want to highlight the cons first. And the overall premise of my cons here is that it creates an inorganic economy. Once we're in open beta and we're fully on chain and we have a tradable economy where every in-game item is accounted for, it holds value. And when you put missions and tasks into a game like this, first of all, we'd assume that these missions and tasks have a reward attached to them. Then you're incentivizing players to go out and play the game differently than they would have naturally done. So if there's a mission for that day or that week where it's, say, forge this tier 5 stage 3 suit, that suit isn't something that every player out there wants or even needs, but because there's a reward attached to them through a mission or task, they're going to try to aim for that, and then they're going to get it and not really want it or need it. So they might try to list it on the Alluvidex, and you're really inflating the supply of something inorganically. So let's say you really wanted that for your team and you worked for the first 2 months to farm everything up to get it, and because it was so rare, there might have only been 50 or 100 out there on the Alluvidex. All of a sudden that mission comes up and then everybody's incentivized to get that. Then they all start listing it on the market and the value of the one you held drops dramatically. There's just an inflated supply of that particular item. Whereas if there wasn't a mission or task, everyone who is aiming to create that item was doing it for a purpose. Now another con I have here is that it makes things harder to balance the game. So no matter what item you're looking at, whether you're looking at suits or alluvials or weapons, you can see in the data how many players are crafting certain items. Now say there's one particular weapon that is just really weak and less people want it, it'll show up in the data as just not being minted as much, and that can give an indication to the team to maybe buff that. Or in the other direction, maybe there's a certain weapon that's being crafted so much because it's so strong, that gives an indication to the team to maybe nerf that item a little bit. But then when you throw missions and tasks into the mix, a mission could incentivize people to craft that really weak weapon, and then that data that comes from that makes it harder to decide whether people are crafting that because it's a good item or crafting it just for the rewards of the mission. And the same thing goes for alluvials. Say for example there's players out there that just really don't like Arena, they don't play it much, it's not really for them, but then there's a task that day to play 5 arena matches. So now that person's just going to throw together any old deck, go into those arena matches, and probably just do it assuming they're going to lose. But then that messes with the data, because all of a sudden the data might be showing all these alluvials are being played in the arena. Maybe there are alluvials that generally perform well, but it's a non-arena player, so they're bringing down those stats. Or there's alluvials that generally don't get used at all because they're so weak, but the non-arena player is just throwing them into a deck just to play. Again, when it comes to the arena side, harder to balance. And the last con I'm seeing is that this really is going to burden the casual player. And the way I say that is that, say you're a weekend warrior, or you're just somebody who might have an hour or two to play each day. You have your goals in mind, you have what you want to do. Maybe it's collecting all of the alluvials, maybe you're out there hunting for hollows and dark hollows. Maybe you just want to build up a specific team for the arena. But now you're logging into the game and you're seeing these missions and tasks. And all of a sudden you feel obligated to aim to complete those rather than doing what you would organically do. And I think that takes a little away from the game. And for those non-casual players who are playing a ton anyways, I don't think these missions are going to incentivize them to play even more. If there's a certain mission where it's like craft 10 resplendent shards, well, they're probably playing enough anyways, so they're going to complete that mission no matter what. Okay, those are just the 3 cons that I have. And really, if I look at it, from the outside in, these cons are more for like the individual player in this ecosystem. The pros come more with the overall ecosystem of Illuvium. And the pros are the obvious ones that you would like to hear. It's going to create more engagement. It's going to be people who maybe they're getting just bored of playing, or maybe they already completed their own objectives and they need a reason to log in, so they log in and play and do the missions and tasks every day. It gives them something to aim for rather than the same mundane thing every day. And along with that is higher retention. You might turn that weekend warrior into a daily player because they're playing on the weekends, they're completing those tasks, and now they're like, oh, well, Monday came, I need to log in and do these missions and tasks. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can't miss it. So you're creating that retention. And then the third one is just overall more revenue. If you knew exactly how much it would cost you, in fuel or in time to meet your own personal objectives, if you're doing missions and tasks on top of that are outside of your personal goals, well, it's going to require more fuel and time to complete those missions and complete your personal goals. So it brings more revenue into the ecosystem, which means more revenue for ILV stakers and more revenue for Illuvium Zero players. And for most people, they've just heard the cons, then the pros, and they're just like, well, the pros far outweigh the cons. And I wouldn't really disagree at all. But I think there is a middle ground that can work really well. I think if the milestones and these missions and tasks were not directly related to NFTs, it would help. So for example, some could be like, travel to X region X amount of times, or win, a certain amount of PvP matches, or gain a certain amount of experience, as opposed to craft this particular item, or go out in the overworld and search for this particular Illuvium. Really, any of the missions, milestones, tasks that really just reward the players for doing more of what they already want to do, I think would be the best way to approach it. So when those tasks are taking people away from their own personal goals, that I think takes a little away from the experience of Illuvium. And this is clearly what we have right now for the testnet. This is most likely what we're getting for the airdrop period of open beta, so that first 4 or 5 months. I'm really curious to see what happens after this airdrop period, how these missions and tasks and milestones really fit into the game. But let me know your thoughts down below. Like and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be making more and more Illuvium stuff, especially now that we have the open beta coming out in just a few weeks. So thanks for watching. Catch you later.